Welcome to Sports Scope, the most influential sports talk show in the nation.
What is today, the 19th?
Stay tuned for updates and great sports content.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to this special recorded edition of an interview with Scott Morganroth there of the South Florida Tribune there. Make sure and get all that squared away. Going to talk about his book. Going to get some insight on the Miami Dolphins. Throw in a little bit of Detroit Lions talk there. Also going to get a little bit of background on Scott. Bring him on the program right now. Hey, Scott, how you doing?
I'm doing fine. Thank you very much for having me, Robert. Appreciate you.
Yeah, and I've ordered your book. I've ordered it from Amazon. And I noticed it. Is it still available on Barnes & Noble?
Yes, it is. Actually,
Okay.
It's available on both. And our goal is with Amazon, of course. But if those that don't order on Amazon, if you go to Barnes & Noble, our goal is to get it actually inside the store so they can buy it. But right now, they're doing it that way first so that they know we're for real.
Okay. Yeah, and I'll get to that in just a little bit. Just wanted to get that out of the way. Let you know I've ordered the book, Lessons from the Microphone by Scott Monaghan. Is that how you say your last name?
Morganroth. Morganroth, the way it sounds.
Okay. Yeah, you can't never tell about people.
No, that's all right. You're good.
I had a friend of mine. Her, you've probably seen her on some of my pages here. Sonja Pearson. Her last name. Her name is Sonia, excuse me, but it's spelled Sonja. That's why I asked here. Just want to get a background on you, man. So what got you involved in sports talk? Is it your dad, or where did your love for sports come from?
Well, let's put it this way. My love from sports came from my dad. Okay. But in Metro Detroit, that's easy when you got four major sports teams there as well. It's not hard, and it doesn't hurt that he owns a sporting goods store either, which leads me to play Little League baseball, hockey, and basketball, albeit I played baseball for 6 years. Yeah. And the other sports are just a little cup of coffee is what they are. But he had a sporting goods store. Now, what's interesting about it, and it is in the book, but I'm letting you know about it now, is that one time on my birthday, you talk about a great birthday present or what, man? He asked myself and another guy if we wanted to go over to WXYZ Sports Talk just to be a guest over there and just see how it is. The reason why we got in there was because his manager was an executive for USA Hockey, and he had appeared on that show a lot, so we walked in there as guests. Yeah. So as it turns out, the producer, George Eichhorn, liked me so much, he asked me to come in there if I want to be an intern. I said, sure, why not? I mean, this is pretty cool stuff. You're in a major sports town, right? You're at WXYZ Radio, which is the ABC affiliate. ABC. Yes, they do exist out there. Okay. So it was a good little break there. George resigned a week later, and who do you think got thrust into the producer's chair? Me.
What was your dad's first love? Baseball?
Yeah, you could say that. He loved all of them. He played softball. He played hockey. He played them all, is what he did.
Okay. But yeah, mine too. It's really with my dad growing up watching football, but he followed baseball. He's still alive. Baseball, basketball, those three main, but his is definitely football. And it seems like that's where a lot of the love or father, air quote, father figure per se.
Well, my dad took me to the 1968 World Series when Earl Wilson was on the mound. Unfortunately, the Tigers did lose that game, but did get to a World Series game.
Wow.
That Tiger Stadium was cool stuff. I don't think my dad ever realized, though, that when I ended up going in to this station, it would turn out to be the way it turned out, that all of a sudden, holy Toledo. This guy would subsequently become a writer. He's behind the scenes. I always think that you should start behind the scenes first, become a writer, and then get on the air. I think there's a chronological order for how you do things. You learn how to write, you become better communicators on the air, and it all goes from that way. You know what I mean?
Uh-huh.
And this was unbelievable. I had a lot of great thrills. Now, when that show was canceled, George and I stayed in touch, and I followed him everywhere. And now that to this day, now that they were dealing with new media, he's got to rely on me. And so the old media at the beginning, I piggybacked off him a little bit, did a lot of writing for the Detroit Monitor, covered a lot of great events, including 4 Super Bowls, among others, but anytime you're talking 4 Super Bowls, I mean, we're talking 4 Super Bowls, okay? We're not talking about Super Bowl week, okay? That's a different animal for all these young people out there. Well, we went to the Super Bowl. No, all you did was go to the week, for crying out loud. Don't take all the publicity they can get if it's good. Well, when you get to the 4 Super Bowl games, because I covered the Lions for many, many years, and I developed good relationships, and then when the NFL did a background check on me, and they went to the Lions went to bat for me. But I covered all of the sports: Tigers, Red Wings, Pistons, and the Lions.
Yeah.
And I've had
what years are we talking about here, Scott?
You know what?
80s, 90s?
I began in 79 was my first break. I moved to Florida, but then we're talking about the 80s, 90s, and into the 2000s is what we have. So it's been constant. I've been in the business, Robert, for 44 years. So I've covered a fair amount of territory.
Most of your life.
Yeah, pretty much.
It's awesome, man.
No two ways about it.
Yeah. And I was going to ask you that. What brought you to Florida? I got a feeling I know what the answer is, but just I want you to talk for yourself.
Well, first of all, this is my second stint here. From 81 to 86, I moved here for school, and I wanted to get away from the cold weather in Michigan. I lived in South
Brutal,
Florida.
ain't it?
Oh, yeah, no kidding. Tell me about it. But I ended up coming here for about 2.5, 3 years, and my first major interview was with Tommy Lasorda of the Dodgers. Yeah, not a bad first way to start anyways.
Yeah.
And believe it or not, I ultimately interviewed O.J. Simpson and a lot of other big names, which are mentioned in the book.
Yes.
So, but I worked at a paper called the Hallandale Digest, a weekly, and then I made a lateral move up to Tampa, where I went to the Tampa Tribune and worked there before I subsequently went back to Detroit. I had a stint in North Carolina in baseball as a director of public relations, was up in Michigan for a while, and then went to Arizona, and now back here in Florida. So what brought me back to Florida second stint is to be close to my parents, because they were getting up there in age, and I wanted to spend a lot of the quality time that I had missed with them when I was away, and now it was an opportunity to return and hang out and steal a few memories and all that.
Yeah. I don't. It's funny. I told you when I was on the show with Ralph Williams, I was down in Tampa, possibly looking to relocate. Just this past May.
Mm-hmm.
Scott, I live in Nashville. We've had 2 7-inch snowstorms in the last 3 years. It's put us down about a week. I can't imagine, and I'm frustrated with that. I'm a medical carrier during the day. Mm-hmm. They guilt trip us to go out here in this snow. We're not nowhere near as good as Michigan is at getting the snow off the ground. I got tired of it. Only reason I'm staying here because I'm putting the money, because it's pretty expensive to live in outside of Tampa area. We're talking $400 to $500 more a month. I'm just putting that into this program. But that warm weather, and the people are pretty friendly down there. There's a myth that, you got a lot of rude people from the Northeast. People are very friendly there in Tampa.
They're Midwest people. What do you expect? I mean, come on, seriously. When you're dealing with people on my side of the state, you get a steady diet of people from New York, New Jersey, Philadelphia area. So, they're not considered, I'll send you a Christmas card right away. I might go out there and try to stick it to you. But I call this area in South Florida called MAD, M-A-D, Hatton. Okay. So not Manhattan, Mad Hatton. Okay.
You live in what, Deerfield Beach area?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I don't mind it here. If these people want to get rude to me, I just go ahead and get ruder and louder. And the ruder and louder I get, what ends up happening is they leave me alone. Because I'm the Motor City mad mouth, not Motor City mild mouth.
Yeah. But quite frankly, the rudest people were in the airport. The people around town in Tampa, this lady at Walgreens, she was very helpful with me. Lady at the fast food restaurant, the hotel, apartment managers, friendly. You go to that airport, TSA, it's a total madhouse.
Right. Yeah, but you know what? The people from Tampa, I'm a University of South Florida graduate. I graduated there in '86. I was there for a couple of years and got my BA degree in communication. I enjoyed those couple of years. Plus, I worked at Tampa Tribune and gained some valuable newspaper experience on a daily basis dealing with deadlines. So I enjoyed my time in both places. I just so happened to be here, and I enjoy it. It doesn't matter. The only thing I don't like about Tampa is some of the traffic on 275 from Tampa to St. Petersburg. Oh my God, that's terrible. I don't mind Clearwater.
That's exactly where I went. I wanted to see where the Rays play. Beautiful, beautiful St. Petersburg. They said it's the sunniest city in the whole state. I read that. It's a little town. I mean, it ain't nothing, but
I still think the Rays belong in Hillsborough County in Tampa, not there in St. Petersburg.
It's a little bit of a drive, to say the least.
Yeah, but it's not only that. I mean, forget St. Petersburg. I think you should be in Tampa, and they should build the stadium right next to where the new stadium is right now. I believe they call
Raymond James. Yeah.
So but they're not going to listen to me, and I don't care. I live in Miami, where the Marlins play on the old side of the Orange Bowl, which is still a pitiful location when they could have built it on the side of Hard Rock Stadium with all that land. But we're talking about Florida. Anything that could be political and is it right comes here. Let's face reality.
Yes.
South Florida is known for scams too. It's not all bikinis and all that other business.
Sunny place with shady people.
In
some cases, right, Scott?
But it's true. I mean, it is.
Yeah. And so what made you want to start your own publication there? I've been dying to ask you that, your story behind that.
Well, that's an excellent question, Rob. And here's the thing. I saw that newspapers were going downhill really quickly.
Yeah.
And I ought to know. I've been in the industry practically my whole life. And I thought, you know what? If I can go out there and do something digital, then you don't have to worry about cutting stories shorter to try to do a piecemeal just to make it look somewhat respectable and take away from what the writer put into it.
Yeah.
So I decided, let's go digital here. And for some reason or another, a friend of mine gave me the idea just to do press releases, and I'm calling up GoDaddy, coming up with some names. And then all of a sudden, the South Florida Tribune came to mind. I asked them if they had it. But why did I come up with the South Florida Tribune?
Yes. Why?
Well, here's the reason. One of my favorite newspaper stops was the Tampa Tribune.
Okay.
I really enjoyed what I got out of that place. The people were great. I learned how to write much better. Okay. And you know what? So why not have South Florida and then a favorite place to work and put them together? It was available, and I jumped on it. Now I'm thinking, what are we going to do with this thing? Okay, I don't know what I'm going to do with this thing. So as time went on, I went out there and gathered media distribution partners to try to get some content. And my wife Candy did a remarkable job working some of the other control stuff and things like that. But as we got deeper into this thing, you have to go with the time. So I decided, let's add broadcasting to this thing. So we started going audio, and then we went visual, and now we have YouTube. And that's why I tell people, if you want to find all of our broadcasts, subscribe to the South Florida Tribune YouTube channel. We have a lot of stuff on there. You're going to find out when we bring you on our show. So it's South Florida Tribune YouTube channel is free to subscribe. But so we went from just strictly digital now to working with people's shorter attention spans. You want to read a whole long article, or do you want it to be slightly reduced, stick a video in there, hit the click button, and then we don't worry about this common quote he added, he said, she said, and all that business. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And
my shorts are getting more views than my whole program. People are shorter and shorter attention span, Scott.
Well, no question about it. I cover the Miami Hurricanes, the Florida Atlantic University Owls, the Miami Marlins. And, while we love doing the podcast at night, we do a lot of damage when we're over at the games. When we put these videos and record them, upload them to the YouTube channel, you'd be surprised how many hits you end up getting. Yeah. So, for example, a 6.5 minute interview with Xavier Restrepo of the University of Miami. You'll hear that name this year a lot. Ended up getting me over 2,100 views. 2,100. Nice. I had another one with Don Mattingly when I talked about Shohei Ohtani that got over 1,700. So, it wasn't very long, and which confines with the shorter attention span. So what we really want to do with the podcast is, if I write a story, it's another piece, a tool to stick it right in the story. Because nowadays media access is getting more and more reduced. So you have to find some sort of audio or visual to insert in there so you're able to do the club justice and us justice as well. And, you know, I talk about a lot of that in my book, and I'm going to be writing a sequel at the end of the year, which will wrap up the Lessons from the Microphone series. And then I'll work on a couple of other books, one of which will be a baseball book and another one which will be a children's book. I'm hoping to have all that done by the end of next year. But the sequel, I'll be doing the outlining probably in early August. And then I'm going to be using the holidays to try to crank the other one up, which will be a lot smaller than the first one. You know who you acknowledge the first time. Now it's about updating it a little bit about what you've done with streaming and some of the key TV deals and the buyouts and all that business. So, but you got to be able to, what I'm saying, you got to be able to combine the best of digital media in a written form and try to go ahead and provide audio and visual to complete the ability to give the follower, fan, whatever, what they want. And that's to be able to hear it, see it, and read it.
Yes. Yeah. And it's so much easier now for the everyday person to go independent. Guys like me and you, of course, I got the StreamYard. You know, who would have thought 10 years ago, Scott, we would be able to set up something like this, or had to go to a studio, rent that, do all that nonsense. And just also, let me ask you this. Did you just simply have an issue working for somebody else where they're telling you what to cover and how to cover it? Did that possibly played a part in you wanting to be independent and start the South Florida Tribune?
No, I never had that problem. People I always work with were great.
That's awesome.
Oh, yeah, they were. In fact, the ones that I work with say, hey, you know what? You've been in the business for a while. Do what you got to do. But then again, you're talking decades worth of this stuff, right?
Yeah.
So who's going to question somebody? Now, if I didn't have a lot of those cutthroat editors, and even at the Tribune when I was working on a daily paper doing high school sports is tough to cover, particularly football, because you're taking your own stats, and who knows whose stats are right. So you do the best you can to get it right, because here's the thing. Those stats go on record with a paper, and that's when the recruiting places get involved and all the schools. So covering high school football is one of the toughest things I've ever had to do, but it builds a lot of character. It really does. I got to tell you one of my favorite stories, but challenges that I had to
I'll bet you've run across some great athletes down there.
Well, I have, but then again, down in South Florida, what would you expect?
They're everywhere, on every corner.
Yeah, but the one story that I really enjoyed writing was with the Tampa Tribune. Boy, it was a tough one, though, because I'll never forget the time I'm covering the Florida State League All-Star game in Osceola, Kissimmee, Florida, the former home of the Houston Astros.
Okay.
But back then, the phone line situation out in a remote area, at that time, that was very remote. I get in that situation, and I couldn't send either of my two stories by using a computer with a suction cup. Like, great. I tried this thing 5 stinking times. Yeah. And again, that all shows in the book. And I'm telling my editor, what am I going to do? I can't do anything with the phone line. So, but I kept my composure even then. So here, Rick, what I suggest we do is this. Okay. We've already tried as hard as we can 5 times. Trying to see if you can get an extension in the deadline, and we might just have to dictate both of them. He said, I can do that. So he goes back to the desk. Hey, listen, we're having a bit of a technical problem out where he's at. Can you give me another 20 to 30 minutes? And this was on a Saturday night going into Sunday, because that's a Sunday paper that we're dealing with.
Oh, wow.
So Rick said, yeah, I got us time. I dictated.
Making me nervous just hearing this.
Don't worry. If you were younger and you had to deal with it, it would have been a whole lot worse. So what happened was I dictated both stories. And yes, that I could have put a famous picture of another person in there, but I didn't, because I wanted you to see the actual article, what I had to do, where it was boxed up in there as a lesson for people to learn about the pressure on the road. And it turned out real well. And the guy, my editor, said, I'm proud of you. You didn't collapse under pressure. We managed to find a way to get it done. It was one of those situations where we won ugly, and believe me, in that situation, we did win ugly.
You made the throws when you need to make them, like an NFL analogy.
Well, that's a good analogy. I like that. We did. Yeah. No, but that's the truth, Rob. That's what we more or less did in that situation, and that's the way I look at it. Is, hey, you know what? If you can't stand the heat, get out of the kitchen. But My late Aunt Judy always said to me, Scott, I don't know how you do this, but it seems like she said, I crack, but I thrive. You thrive under pressure and you like it. Well, sure I do. I mean, everybody else would melt and you just, you know.
You like Brady, you just rise to the occasion.
Yeah, I like to call me a gunslinger, but you know what? My wife calls me a crazy man because when I drive, I get stronger at night where most people wear down. And that's when I figure, oh, I can blow these people off the road. There's no traffic. And, you know, did you realize that there's 12 commandments and not 10?
Man.
Did you?
Say that again.
There's 12 commandments and not 10.
Oh, what's the 12 commandments? What's the other two?
The other two are thou shalt not overpay and thou shalt not get caught.
Thou shalt not get caught?
And thou shalt not overpay.
Oh, you know what I thought you was going to say?
What?
It's easier to ask for forgiveness than ask for permission.
And I didn't think Moses wouldn't have come across these two. He was too ethical. I'm whatever you want to call me after your viewers get when they get a deal with me. But no, it's one of those deals where, you know what, I like pressure. I think pressure molds who you are.
Yes.
And, you know, I think when I wrote this book, and I knew I thought about doing something like this. This is a type of book that talks about old school media versus new school media, how it was back in the day when you dealt with the FCC. It isn't all sports, by the way. There's a lot of non-news components in it, you know,
okay,
as well. So, I mean, a lot of it is sports, but when you get into it, say, wow, I never realized this kind of stuff. I mean, and I'm not going to give it all away. I want people to say,
I want to bring you back on after I read it and ask some more questions just to entice people to buy that book even more. I think that'll be an excellent interview, man.
Listen, Rob, anytime you want to bring me on, you know, as long as you get me in this 6 o'clock neighborhood, I'll come on all day long. I love talking to you. I enjoyed it when we were on Ralph's show. And now here we get to do our own deal tonight. I think it's in the eyes of Dick Vitale, awesome, baby. Yeah, and
boy, he's a fighter, ain't he?
Yeah, but you know what? There's an interesting story about Dick Vitale. We worked at the same station back in the day when I broke into the business.
What year are we talking about here?
We're talking 79, 80.
There you go, audience.
Yeah, but he was working for the University of Detroit Titans basketball team at the time. And, you know, he had a show because at that time they got to promote any way they can. So he ends up, you know, for us. And he lives in Sarasota, and I caught up with him a couple of times. Oh, he remembered me. I mean, you know, you have a loudmouth young kid like me, brash, breaking it, but he liked me. He said, "You're pizzazz, you got, you know, energy and all that." Of course, I still have it, and I'm in my 60s now.
Hey, Scott, baby, how you doing, kid?
Yeah, kind of like that, really. But we have a pretty good show. Yeah, he remembered. No, he remembered. How do you forget this face and his voice? Am I?
Yeah, you got a picture of Bob Ryan from the Boston Globe. How do you know Bob Ryan? How'd that relationship develop?
Yeah, with Bob, I ended up meeting him many years ago over at the Palace of Auburn Hills when the draft was there. And then I caught up with him again at the National Sports Media Association.
Okay.
And we've been, Bob's just great. We're just good friends as what we are. He's like a mentor of sorts. So I had a chance to catch up with him last week, and I gave him a copy of the book because he's in it.
See, folks, I mean, that is awesome. I can't wait to read this thing. I ordered it this morning. I don't know if you get any notifications if somebody's ordered the book on Amazon. If you got one early this morning about 4:00 your time, that was me.
Oh, beautiful. Well, my wife handles that. All I do is get out there, and she handles the business side. It's up to me to just get on these shows here and have a blast with this whole stuff. And I'm going to get it out there.
It's good to have a good helper starting a business. And I'm single, and I have to do everything. I understand, Scott. Kudos to you. And my friend John McGrath, his wife Linda, helps out with National Streaming Sports. You see them on social media here. They've got a podcasting network. It takes a team to build a business, man. It's too hard to do it on your own.
Well, the one thing about my wife is she has a day job just like you. She works over at a bank, but she helps me out at night, and she enjoys it too because she gets to take pictures at a lot of sporting events. And, you know, we're not couch potatoes or anything, but the first thing she'll ask me is, hey, by the way, the Marlins are playing the Mets in a couple of weeks. And I'm thinking, oh, you should tell her. And I have no problem with it because she doesn't. But she does a great job, though, Rob. That's the thing. It's not like you have a wife there with a camera phone. This woman here does a dynamite job on the field. And when we're at the game, I give her direction, and she knows, hey, he's in charge. I'm here right with him. I'll do whatever he needs me to do. But the thing that's important that when you put a book like this together, you're not going to make money, especially your first year. You're probably going to lose a lot of money. But then you learn, you get through the learning pains and growing pains. And then the second, third, fourth gets easier because I invested into a book coach this time, which cost me a little bit more money.
Okay.
But the next time I won't need her because I've already done it. All I'll need is an editor. And my wife knows how to upload everything to everywhere we need to go. So it'll be a lot easier. There'll certainly be editors. I mean, I'm not bulletproof in terms of not being able to make mistakes.
Yeah.
But the way I outline my books is I'll take a card like this. Let me show you what I'll do.
Yeah, sure.
It like this. Okay, something like this. And then what I'll end up doing is I'll go out there and do one chapter or two, depending on how many cards I need. And then outline, put regular, straightforward bullet points, boom. And then once I get there, I define what the chapter is, we move on to the next one with Google Docs. Now, and then I go from there. Now, bear in mind, the first one's 15 chapters. The next one, I figure, should be between 8 and 10. So it's about 206 pages. Now it's a matter of being able to go out there and try to fill in the blanks. I don't want to do a third one, I think. You know, only because there's certain things in that first book I couldn't get in there because they didn't fit.
Yeah. And didn't want to overwhelm the reader. Hey, switching gears to football, I wanted to ask you about, been stories come out about Tua. He's on a 5th-year option with the Miami Dolphins. You're at Arid, South Florida. I feel like it's kind of, I like Tua, but I understand the season he had, 69% completion percentage. But you got to look at his whole body of work, his injury history,
right?
His lack of athleticism and whatnot, his height issues. What are your thoughts about him getting signed? And what is your personal opinion of Tua if you're the general manager there of the Dolphins?
Number one, you already hit the nail on the head. The guy's only had 1 year where he's healthy, and he played 17 games. You think I'm going to invest that much money into a guy that's only had 1 healthy year, where you better have a really good backup for this guy, because heaven forbid, you know what I mean? You know, he gets hurt again. So no, I wouldn't pay him that. I think that Tua needs another year. If you have to franchise him, you do it. It's not about hurting feelings, Rob. It's about looking at, like you say, the body of work and the body getting banged up. So I wouldn't pay him that kind of money at all. Now, if he has another year like he did and they get in the playoffs again, then you might want to revisit a little bit in terms of the length of the deal. But I think if you were to give him a contract extension now, honestly, I think it's way too premature. I really do. I wouldn't do it.
Yeah. And I think what's his name? The general manager. Is it Chris Greer?
Chris Greer.
Yeah. Chris Greer. I have kind of a theory on this.
Okay.
Kirk Cousins, Blake Bortles.
Mm-hmm.
I like Dak. He's another good guy. But those other two I just named, and then you look at a guy like Tua, do you think that these players that are somewhat average are going to get this big money simply because the general manager's scared to do a transition to quarterback? He might get fired. They're based out of fear, particularly Kirk Cousins, for saying. I mean, I thought that was like the ultimate insurance policy. Don't fire us. Let's pay Kirk Cousins to keep us just above average or playoff worthy, not Super Bowl worthy. What's your thoughts about that? There's more these signings at the NFL. Most of these guys are not worth it. They're just driven by pure fear because these owners don't have any patience, Scott.
Well, I don't know if the word pure fear is the right way of putting it. Okay, this is just what I think. Number one, Bobby Bonilla had a great agent, but get me Kirk Cousins' agent. He's way better than Bonilla. Okay,
he just had his day on July the 1st, right?
Yeah, right, exactly. Look at this guy. You're good. So here's the deal. Okay, number one, Atlanta's quarterback situation was an absolute mess anyways to begin with. And they had to make a coaching change, and obviously they had no choice to do it.
Yeah,
Kirk Cousins, get me his agent all day long, because the amount of money he's gotten out of Washington on franchise tags in Minnesota, and then he got Atlanta I mean, this guy gotten good money. He's the best businessman on the planet. But in terms of owners trying to get proven quarterbacks, you get 2, 3, 4 productive years. If you get in the playoffs these days, you're okay, because nowadays, once you get in the playoffs, anything can happen if you get hot at the right time.
Yeah.
But the key is getting to the tournament. Now, I think the one thing where so many people are messing up, you can't put these young quarterbacks in the first year, although many of them are impatient and will do it. You cannot do that, because what will happen is if they fail, try building their confidence back up. So ideally, when I was growing up watching the game, to me, I think the average situation was about 1 or 2 years. I mean, like Green Bay, for example.
I'm just going to say Jordan Love, Aaron Rodgers both sit out for 3 years.
Exactly.
Is Jordan Love going to make it? I think he is.
Yeah, but I wouldn't pay him $55 million a year.
That's true.
Seriously.
That's true.
And there's an
He's got to do it
organization.
2 full years.
Well, that doesn't matter. I mean, let me see what this guy does in 2 or 3 years. I say just franchise the guy and see what's what. He doesn't like it, too bad. I mean, Brett Favre was in there for a while. Aaron sat. Aaron was in there for a while. Jordan Love is going to sit, and we'll see what he does. You got to remember, though, I think a lot of the passing stats are so deceiving because you can't hand check anymore, and you cannot go out there and do the things you have to do. So it's obviously an air-driven game than it used to be. I used to think that Dan Marino's record was unbreakable, but now what is he, 8 or 10 on the food chain?
Right. Yeah, me too.
And yet I think he has the quickest release I've ever seen.
Yes.
And of course, Don Shula surrounded him with good receivers. And again, I don't care what any era you're in, you need to be surrounded with good targets. So, all these quarterbacks, I think what's going to end up happening is you're going to see a salary cap on quarterbacks is what you're going to do down the road.
Okay.
I'm not worried about the other players, but at some point you have to cap it. So
I've talked about that on this program. Now, are you talking a cap just for quarterbacks or quarterbacks not affecting the cap, Scott?
No, I would say that you're going to have a salary cap on quarterbacks, period. That's what I'm saying. And again, and then you'll know what you have there, and of course whatever the cap is for the team itself.
Yeah.
But you can't sit here and get yourself in quarterback debt.
Yes.
Especially guys that think they deserve it way earlier. Just because you get one great year, all of a sudden I'm king of the castle and you guys are the dirty rascal. Don't expect me to sing on your future show because I'm probably awful anyways, and you'll need a Memorex glass to make sure you don't break where you're at. But I think that's what it's going to come down to. I really do. The quarterback, the owners see it, they know it. But I think before the owners start worrying about any of that, I think what you're going to find out is let's find different ways of getting more revenue streams, which we know are a result of streaming. And then, of course, the ultimate pay here will be the 18-game schedule, and then they're going to talk about it. It all comes down to the collective bargaining agreement. Let's just go out there and nibble away what we can get, and then boom, because then you have more money out there with an 18-game schedule, which I knew that once they went from 16 to 17, they were going to 18. So they had to make concessions here and there.
Do you see them adding another bye in there, Scott?
Oh, yes, I do.
Okay.
Yeah, you have to. And I see them adding another 4 overseas games as well, because after all, they're trying to grow the game globally. NFL's done a marvelous job doing that. They really have. So I think that's what you're looking at down the road. And I expect you, when you bring me on these shows again, boy, you called that one, Scott. You definitely called this one, too. You called that one. Well, when you know the way the NFL does business, to me, you know how it's done. I mean, I don't play fantasy football. Don't really care a lick about it.
Oh, I love all that stuff.
Yeah,
but I'm a different generation.
I like reality football where you take your tape recorder and your phone and stick it in their grill and get them to talk is what you do. I mean, I played it a few years when I was in a family league, and I ended up winning 2 titles in about 3 years doing it, but it never did anything when my sister-in-law hammered me when she had Antonio Brown and some of these, and I didn't have that receiver. How can you let somebody that stupid beat?
Everybody's got a fantasy football story.
Yeah. To me, I was so competitive, I couldn't play fantasy football. I never really cared for it anyways. I just did it because I was asked to do it. But I don't do it anymore.
When I just think at some point Florida's going to get sports gambling legal. When is that going? That was one of the cons for me not moving to Florida. I can bet on FanDuel here, Scott. And
well, it is legal now. It is legal.
Okay. I could not sign on to FanDuel when I was in Florida, Scott.
Yeah, I think I'm not sure where it's legal at. I'll try to find out where it is, but I think sports betting in Florida is legal now. I'm not sure whether it's Hard Rock here in town in Hollywood.
But I'm talking about like on the apps on the phone, anywhere in the state.
I don't know. I'll have to do a little bit of homework.
Okay.
On that, but I think it is legal in Florida now.
Okay. I had some problems. I couldn't get on there. So what? I've been reading a lot about the Dolphins. They're redoing their defense. They've got a new. What was that issue with Vic Fangio? Why did he just leave like that?
I think he was sick and tired of it there, to be honest with you.
It was it him and McDaniels. I've read that maybe the players they couldn't understand his.
There was a disconnect somewhere, and he ended up going to Philadelphia. He's going to be there. In fact, in Philadelphia, you're looking at an interesting situation. You got two new coordinators. You got Vic Fangio, and then you also have Kellen Moore over there. So they bring their coordinators up there. So, I think it was inevitable there was going to be a departure, and it did take place. So I say, but you got to remember one thing about Vic Fangio. We're old school. So is he.
Yeah.
Mike McDaniel.
Very physical. Was he hollering at the player? Because McDaniels is totally opposite of him.
I don't know. I don't.
You don't have any insight on that.
Basis. All I do is I'm on their media distribution list, so I can read a lot of what's said over there. But again, nowadays, as I have taken on this digital publication, I would like to tell you that I could be a beat writer for any team. I don't have time. I'm lucky to get out to 1 or 2 games a week if I'm really, really lucky. And I have to build something, so I don't have the luxury of being able to be a beat writer. But I can read a lot of the press releases and try to read into what they're telling me. I just think that Vic Fangio felt the fit was better in Philly. And, the reason why they brought Mike McDaniels in here was to get along with Tua.
Yes.
Brian Flores obviously didn't get along with him because he came from the Belichick coaching tree, and they were hard-nosed. They didn't care who. Okay, this is the way it is. Just no more or less than Barry Sanders retired. When Bobby Ross took over, he treated everybody the same, but Barry Sanders had it good when he had Wayne Fontes over there. Wayne Fontes let him do whatever he wants, and if you ever hit Barry Sanders and he has a red jersey, he's going to cut you the next day. That's what he was. I mean, Wayne Fontes was a father figure to Barry Sanders. So, again, it comes down to certain ways of communicating. But the only reason McDaniel got hired was 2 reasons. One, he was a good offensive coach, but he wasn't a coordinator. And number 2, you knew he was going to get along with your franchise quarterback, or you'd have to. There was a time when the Dolphins talked about getting Deshaun Watson. Boy, how smart they were that one fell through.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yes, I do remember that, Scott. What do you think about this Anthony Weaver, this guy, defensive line coach, I think, from Baltimore they brought over?
Well, anytime you bring in a defensive coach from Baltimore, Rob, you can't do that bad because they've always had good defenses up there.
Well, we think just alike, man. I never want to put my thoughts in your head. I just said, let him decide. And that's what I think.
Great minds think alike, GMTA. Even Kenny Albert knew that when I talked to him last week. But he didn't know another one I threw at him called SCP. So what is that? See, I taught Kenny Albert last week.
Did you really?
Yeah, slow down, think and proceed. I've never heard that one. Yeah, but you got me on GMTA. And I'm working on trying to get him on a show. We'll see how that plays out.
Oh, wow.
So, I don't know if I can do it or not. I guess
you've met Marv, too.
No, I never did meet Marv Albert, but Kenny's
that's my favorite NBA guy of all time,
Oh, yeah. Well, actually, believe it or not, my favorite NBA guy of all time many years ago was Brent Musburger.
Oh, yeah.
I love watching Brent NBA games. Gary Bender was also pretty good, too.
Yeah. So is this Dolphin? I think this Dolphin team's going to come up short this year. I think they're a little finesse, but it's hard to tell. What's your thoughts on Dolphins? Are they going to make the playoffs this year?
You know what? I never had a lot of faith in them last year because they always seem to fall apart during the cold weather months. In January. So what makes you think I'm going to feel any different? So they proved to me, and they lost a lot of key players this year. So I would think that the Dolphins' record would be between 9-8, 8-9, and I do believe they're going to fall short.
Wow. I mean, we are just on the same wavelength. I thought you might have had some kind of bold prediction. Tyreek Hill's getting paid a ton. They just re-signed Waddle. they just want to be a speed team. But like you said, you got to win in January, Scott.
Yeah, but let me ask you a question. What good is all that offense if you can't stop anybody?
Right. They struggle
You ever
with
heard of that
teams.
You ever heard of that offense called the run and shoot? Years ago? Yeah. Well, the run and shoot, when you outscored everybody, you couldn't stop anybody. How many teams won a Super Bowl with the run and shoot?
Yeah. Well, look where Cliff Kingsbury is.
Well, that's true too. But the run and shoot,
a similar type of offense where you'd run in, you real finesse, you rise up early and you fall late.
Well, that's true. But how many teams actually won with the run and shoot? Nobody did. It was good to put. It was an exciting offense, but the problem is you didn't employ tight ends. All of a sudden, your quarterback getting killed out there. But if you get the ball, you have a good track meet from start to finish is what you had. So, again, I've always been a firm believer that defense wins championships. Nowadays, you have to have good offenses to get there. But, why do you think everybody's trying to hire that sexy offensive coordinator to try to become that guy? But there's no real path to winning a championship. You have to communicate really well. But, look at Mike Tomlin. I think he's one of the best coaches that the Steelers let him go. He'd have had a job that fast. And you know what's so good about Tomlin? You would need the Rooney Rule because he is the minority. But
he knocked it out of the park. That being said, I like Tomlin, but here lately he's just good. He's just good enough not to get fired. And of course, our mutual friend Ralph Williams, he thinks the same.
Well, you know what? The Steelers don't fire a lot of coaches, and they know that
3 coaches since '69. Go figure.
Right. But they know that. Here's my philosophy about coaching firings. Okay. If you don't have anybody better lined up, you better stick with what you have. Especially when somebody else out the door will be lining up to get this guy, and then you say, "Oh, I made a mistake."
Yeah. That is true. You're from Detroit. Today is what, July the 9th?
Yeah.
As of July the 9th, I think the Lions are going to the Super Bowl. They were in the NFC Championship game last year. Think back to 2008. What did they go, 0-16, 2007?
Yeah, I try to forget about that, but we're glad we got company with the Cleveland Browns.
Could you imagine? Yes. What's your thoughts on this surge in the Detroit Lions? This is so exciting.
Well, here's the thing, okay? I'm glad that they were able to get to the NFC Championship game because they were able to get rid of a monkey out there back about not winning a playoff game in a while. Speaking of which, the Dolphins haven't won one in like 24 years either.
Oh, my. See, they
haven't won one in 24 years. So, but back to the Lions, okay?
Yeah.
They finally have built the culture. Well, the guy behind the scenes that you don't hear much about is Chris Spielman, okay? He's quietly behind the scenes. Brad Holmes is a modern version of Einstein, and Dan Campbell, to me, was actually an interim coach in Miami. Was like 5-7, but he wasn't good enough for the Dolphins job.
I thought he was going to be terrible. Did you?
I wasn't sure what to get out of him.
Oh, okay.
But he ended up going over to New Orleans, working with Sean Payton, and he begged for this job. And you know what? He's done a good job with the Lions. Now I'm guarded against hoping they'll get to the Super Bowl because you want to make sure that Jared Goff is healthy, and if he gets hurt, they're in trouble. So now what you have to do is you have to make sure Hendon Hooker, who's probably going to be their backup quarterback, gets as many reps as he can during training camp. He's a Tennessee guy. You guys know him all too well.
Yes. I thought he was going to succeed Goff, but are you okay with that extension of Goff?
Well, absolutely.
Okay. Yeah, same here.
Oh, yeah. I mean, the guy's won for you. At one point, we thought he was a bridge quarterback, but all he did was just go out there and win. And when all you do is win, the Lions don't want to be known as a team where now we got a quarterback, okay, who's actually got us further in the playoffs than Matt Stafford. And I love Matt Stafford, don't get me wrong. I really, really do.
Yeah.
But he won a couple – he's a folk hero there. He wasn't appreciated in L.A. He goes to Detroit, and look what he's done. So, yeah, I think they had to make the move. And if you're going to change the culture of an organization which has been indigent for a long time, what you have to do, pay the players that deserve the money. And they made a lot of those commitments during the offseason. I don't have to get into all the details of them. We all know by now who they are. Although Penei Sewell wasn't a sexy pick when they drafted him. Everybody wanted those receivers, but the Lions built the offensive line. You pick up a guy like Amon St. Brown who's mad at everybody.
In the 4th round.
Right, exactly. So now he's angry as can be. And then you start adding more and more pieces, and look what you have here. So I'm going to be guarded. I hope they do get to the Super Bowl. And Aiden Hutchinson was a great player. Again, we're talking defense, and that's where Jacksonville messed up because they could have had him, but they didn't. But sometimes
yes,
goes your way.
Jacksonville's general manager may be the big letdown. They took a guy, I can't remember his name off the top, out of Georgia.
Yeah, right. I know who you're. Was it Walker?
Yes. And he's a speed guy, but he wasn't a pure pass rusher like Hutchinson. It's just moves like that. So you're saying Spillman deserves the credit over Holmes, or they're just working all together as just a police? They're like the Ravens.
Well, I mean, let me ask you a question. Who hired Holmes?
Oh, was it Spillman?
Well, who had a hand in that hiring?
Oh, I don't know. I thought it'd be ownership.
Spielman did.
Okay.
His brother Rick Spielman was pretty good with the Vikings, so his name doesn't get brought up a lot. But somebody's in Sheila Ham's ear, right?
I've been praising Holmes to the high heavens.
well, I would too, because Brad Holmes is smart.
Oh, man, is
actually,
he good.
You know what? I've got something that I'm actually putting on Inside the Pigskin later.
Sure.
And it just so happens to be readily available now. When you look at the Matthew Stafford trade that they revisit this.
Yes.
Okay. Here's what we've got. The Rams get Matthew Stafford out of it, right? Won the Super Bowl. Worked out well,
got
right?
the Super Bowl.
So who did the Lions get? You ready?
Let's hear it.
All right. Jared Goff worked out pretty well, right?
Yes.
Jameson Williams. Ever heard of him? Pretty good.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I think he could break out this year.
All right, but let me go over each of these.
Sure. Let's do it.
Ifeatu Melifonwa, whatever. He's also in there. You've got Josh Pascal, that was 21 in 2021, 101st overall. Josh Pascal, 2022, number 46 overall. Jameer Gibbs, you ever heard of him? Pretty good, right?
Yeah.
And what about Sam Laporta? Ever heard of him? Pretty good, right?
Rookie, he's right. And then you traded your tight end.
I got one more. Hold on.
Go ahead. Yeah.
You got Broderick Martin, right? 2023, 96 overall. So you got 7 players for Matthew Stafford. What does this remind me of? That Herschel Walker trade that Jimmy Johnson swindled the Minnesota Vikings to get all those players. Now, will this lead to a Super Bowl? No, but if the Rams got their Super Bowl with Stafford, the Lions got playoff wins and then some with Jared Goff, and you have all these extra pieces there. You got a running back, and you have a tight end, and you have a wide receiver, all in that particular trade. So when you talk about the fact that it was a collective effort between Dan Campbell, obviously got to coach these guys, and they were 3-13-1 their first year. Everybody was nervous. So just cool down. That's why they gave him a 6-year contract. Because you have to understand about Detroit is that if you're a head coach there, you don't get and you fail there because they're so patient, you don't get another head coaching job. So Dan Campbell was risking.
Ain't that the truth?
Huh?
Ain't that the truth? Would you call this trade a draw right now? Who gets the advantage, or did you just say the Rams because they won it all?
No. Actually, I think it is probably a coin toss, but that could end up leaning the Lions' way if they win a Super Bowl.
Me too.
Because you end up getting 7 players for the price of 1. Now, I remember years ago when we used to have the entertainment book, you get 2 for 1, but nobody said anything about 7 for 1.
That's a great point. I'm still Sam Laporta. The sky is the limit for him. Gibbs could be a potential MVP type of. I think Gibbs could really, really break out this year if they use him right.
Well, let me tell you this. Before they had Sam Laporta, they drafted T.J. Hawkinson is what they did, right?
Yeah.
And out of Iowa, they flipped him over for some draft capital. And, T.J.'s doing all right in Minnesota, but the Lions go back to tight end University, Iowa, and pick this guy up. So, people have to understand Iowa is tight end university, okay?
George Kittle went to Iowa.
Well, there you go. So you're just backing up my point even further, aren't you? So the reality of the situation is I was once told by a Dodgers executive, I think it was actually Al Campanis in 81. Forget about the other stuff that subsequently took place. But he told me there's 3 ways to look at a trade. One of them, immediate, midterm, and long-term.
Yeah, that's true. And you got to have patience as a general manager. What's your thoughts on that Hawkinson trade? I thought the Lions are crazy for doing this. Trading, it's unheard of to trade a player of that caliber in the division. What was your initial thought on that?
That's exactly what my initial thought was. But obviously, I'm not questioning Brad Holmes. And after he made that move, that certainly reinforced that maybe it wasn't as bad as it looked. Because you got to remember one thing about Hawkinson, though. He does have an injury history, too.
Yes.
So if you're not available on the field, then it cushions the blow a little bit, Rob. It really, really does. But I was wondering I wonder if the Lions were throwing in towel, but no, there was a lot more to that situation that met the eye for sure.
Yeah, I'm just astounded by that. Well, man, I really appreciate you coming on the program.
Kidding? It's been a blast.
Yeah, it's fun talking sports with you. You mentioned something about I would love to bring Dawn Davenport on. We talked about that.
Yeah, I don't have any contact with her right now. I really don't.
Okay.
The only way that I could probably get to her is if I reached out to her, but I don't know when I'm going to get to Tennessee right away. But, I do have a guy, though, I'm going to put you on with. He's one of my proteges. His name is Spencer Maxwell Thompson.
Out of Franklin, right?
Yeah. This kid, and he's out of the University of Alabama. Where he got his BA degree over at Middle Tennessee State, which is right around the corner from you, right?
Yeah, about 25 miles down the road.
Right, and now he's at Alabama. But I've already told Spencer about you, so I think this is a young stud. I guarantee you won't be disappointed when you put this guy on.
Jamar Gibbs of Sports Talk. He's
more of a play-by-play broadcaster, but he's getting better at Sports Talk if you give him the right type of things to talk about. But this kid here is developing under me, and he went to the NSMA and spent an entire weekend with me. I came up with this idea he came up with the idea of bulldozer marketing, and he'll explain to you that down the road. But I'd love to be able to do that. I just haven't really been in touch with her a long time since I saw her. But should I ever come in contact with her, I won't.
Yeah, she works local radio around here. Yeah.
Well, what you could do if you really want to get her on bad enough is I would just contact the stadium, introduce yourself to who she is, and I'm sure she'd have no problem going out there and coming out.
Did I drop Scott Morganroth to her?
Yeah, you just say Scott Morganroth, NSMA member. You can do that. She'd probably remember. I have a photo with her way back when. But she's a nice lady. She really, really is. And, but I don't think it'd be harder to get her on. Just reach out to her and say, hey, I had a guy from NSMA that was on. I met him through somebody else. Can you spare me whatever time you have? And whatever she can give you, she'll probably do it. She's a really nice lady. I don't think it's going to be as hard as you think it is, Rob. I really don't.
That's awesome, Scott. Now, plug your shows, man. We got the book here. You're busy all the time. I see you on the computer 7 days a week sometimes.
Well, I am on 7 days a week, but that's just part of the business. A lot of my top shows include Inside the Pigskin, which is actually on tonight where we do talk all football. So if you have a chance to go ahead and watch it or listen to it later, by all means do it. I might be giving you more information so you can carry it on future shows.
Sure.
With that one. On Monday night.
And that's 8 p.m. Eastern, right?
That is correct.
Okay.
Well, actually, tonight's show with the football is around 8:30. We have former
8:30.
Yeah, for Inside the Pigskin. Now we have former NFL assistant coach John Bonamago that comes on, and former NFL running back Melfar Jr., who are regulars on the program. And they are on with me every week. Monday night, I have 108 Stitches baseball talk because my passion's always baseball anyways.
Okay.
So that's neat. I have the Sports Exchange, which is my premium sports show on Wednesday night around 9 o'clock Eastern time. I also have the Motor City Mad Mouse show, which fluctuates between my network and No Filter Network. So it's going to be.
What does that pertain of?
Those are mainly one-on-one interviews is what they are. I love doing one-on-one interviews. One of my big goals was to do play-by-play. I haven't given up on that down the road. Plus, I like to go out there and I like doing play-by-play and public speaking, but I haven't given up on either. I need another year and a half to be able to put books together, and then I'll have to see where we are. And then we'll have to find out where the axis is so I know that when I make the transition, Rob, I'll be able to make the transition in a manner that I'm ready to do that and back off game coverage. Another one that we do, I don't go on it as much, but Ralph Williams is on there, is Fire Up. I go on from time to time, but when the time comes that you go on that show, I will be on there, I promise. And
I'll get fired up talking NFL, man.
Oh, no, I got news for you. When we bring you on, it will be a football show.
It was great last time. Yeah, back in June, yeah.
Oh, yeah, don't worry. The plot will thicken, that's for sure. But every now and then I'll double up on a show if I feel like.
What is the name of your channel? Is it the South Florida
South Florida Tribune YouTube channel?
Okay. Just want the audience to make sure they got that. Yeah.
Yeah. So if you haven't subscribed, which I think you have already.
Yeah, I have. Yes.
What's that?
Yes, yeah. But I didn't know if you had. A lot of people got different channels for whatever.
No.
And okay, good.
I like to keep it one, and then all the shows run through the main umbrella and go there. South Florida Tribune YouTube channel. It has all of my different shows on there. It does, and I'd rather do it that way. It's a lot easier for people to find it that way.
Yes.
My Twitter stuff is at Tribune South, so a lot of the stuff that you're seeing there on the computer is through Tribune South on there. And of course, we're Facebook friends, so I get a lot of that up there as well.
Yes, and I've always reposted your stuff on the Twitter X app. So
I appreciate that.
5,000 followers. I mean, it seems like you're doing really well with that.
Well, I'm trying to do much better, but I haven't had time to focus on Twitter as much. 4,300 is not bad. I'm not complaining. Yeah. Would I like to get it more? Yeah, but I have to remember I do some Instagram stuff, but I live on LinkedIn because I'm looking to get top-notch guests is what I'm looking to get. And between LinkedIn, Twitter, I find some, and Facebook, I know I have no problem, and some of the people I've known for a long time. So, I think even when I do NSMA a little bit, I'm going to go back to LA within a year or two so I can get back and penetrate that market as well. So I like to, I'm not the most stationary target on the planet, as you've noticed with my social media stuff.
Yeah, you're a good route runner, man.
Yeah, I wish I had the knees for it, but yeah, I think. But once again, everything runs to the South Florida Tribune YouTube channel. But this is my pride and joy. This is 44 years worth of work, and when I write the second one, I am excited as you can be to make sure that we go out there and do what we have to do to fill in the blanks of what we didn't, because you're going to learn as much in the second one as you did the first. Because I'm carefully, mentally figuring out what I'm going to do, and then when I put that outline together, the writing shouldn't be as difficult because I know what I put in there before. I know the format, and of course how we end up going through the process. So I'm glad. Thanks for getting it.
Yes.
Refer it, and I hope you also give it a good review on Amazon as well.
Yes, yeah, I will. How many pages is that? About what, 350?
No, this one's 206.
Okay, I might be able to speed read that thing then.
Well, knowing you the way you are, the way we both speed talk, you won't have no problem speed reading. Which I think is a compliment, because anytime you got two guys that can talk fast, it means there's energy there. There's nothing wrong with energy. You see me talking with my hands, right? Anybody that's in the studio with me doesn't need 6 feet. They need 60 feet so they don't get whacked in the head and shoulder. All I talk with my hands, and then I get deeper. And I got to tell you one story, though. I do have to get in here. I'm over at a restaurant in Coral Springs, and we just opened up. I went on with a friend of mine. We were doing a boxing show, and there was nobody in there. I told the guy, because I know these people, they're good friends of mine. I said, you got to turn the music down so I don't run the trademark. So I'm sitting on one end of the restaurant, and then my voice was booming so loud that you from one end of the restaurant to the other to the kitchen and hit the ceiling. My friend was laughing so hard. God, Scott, I can't believe that your voice was booming. It was laughing. He said, I can't. This is unbelievable. I mean, you're booming from one end to the top and then all the way over. He said, that was fun to watch. But I've always said, you know what? To me, I love radio, and I don't mind doing TV. Of course, nowadays we're all on TV to some extent with all this video stuff. Yeah. But I
love radio and podcasting.
I like podcasting and broadcasting. And I think the one thing I want people to get out of the book is old school media versus new school media. Because once upon a time, this is how it was, and this is where it's going. And as I come up with more...
I can't wait to read that. Yeah. Well, and I'll review it a lot and then bring you back on. That's going to be awesome. And you saying that reminded me, my Friday guest, Mad New Yorker, or he usually comes on towards the end of the week. We met at Austin Peay back in 2002, 20-something years ago,
right? And
at their university center. And we get to talking sports. It was like that, bouncing off the wall here and talking about last night's game, Monday Night Football, or the Tennessee Vols or whatever.
Right.
And or he's from New York, he was living in Clarksville. The Yankees or the Mets or whatever, and it would be just like that, man. You just get real excited and start doing that number. Plus, a lot of caffeine jacked up on that coffee kind of made it even more exciting.
Well, I don't use the
or
coffee.
Annoying. It depends on if you're not a sports fan.
Well, my gasoline is, don't you? Mine is Diet Mountain Dew. My doctor's trying to.
Oh man.
And you know what? If you're in the North Carolina area, though I didn't have it on the last trip, you got to have Sundrop, man. Holy Toledo.
You sound like a race car guy now. That makes me
you know what?
learn
Let me tell you something. I'm glad you talked about that because when I'm on the road, I'm the interstate intimidator. When I had Mike Massaro on, hope you don't get caught. No, I know when to speed, when not to speed. Definitely not in Georgia. I've been nailed there before. It wasn't a fun situation in my route to Talladega 500. So I got to do a Diet Coke if I can't get Diet Mountain Dew, but Diet Mountain Dew. And if I need to settle it down a little bit before I do anything, I'll go iced tea in that order. And if we had sun drop in South Florida, and Monster drinks, Holy Toledo. To me, an Indy car would be slow compared to what my mileage can be when I get all this stuff in my. It's called my gasoline. Everybody has to go put gasoline in their cars, right?
Man, I'm just straight coffee black.
In me. Yeah, that's what I do. And the one, and earlier in the day, if I don't have as many one-liners, you know what ends up happening? I have a whole lot more by the end of the day. I should have written a book on one-liners, but the problem is I lose them.
That could be your third book if you get bored.
Yeah, but the problem is I've had so many of them, I forgot them. Say, well, it's no good. But you know what? I'm happy with what I'm at with what I'm doing with the media stuff anyways.
Yeah. Well, I got to wrap up, Scott.
Hey, Rob, it's been a pleasure being on the show. And, and I look forward to doing it again. And I'll tell you what, if you're willing to send this show to me, I'll promote it on my platforms as well. How does that sound?
Yeah, right? I'll post it. I'll post it live on my show or with the replay, either Thursday or Friday. I can't really decipher. Either way, Thursday, Friday, I'll tag you with it and promote it. And also, I'm going to cut it and take some clips because you got some good one-liners in this interview.
Well, send me what you got. The clips are great. I don't know how to do
I love clips.
And I'm learning. That's where I'm really behind the 8 ball here. But anyway,
they're very easy if you've got StreamYard, Scott.
If it's in its full form, great. If it's in a minute, just email it to me is what you'll do.
Oh, well, absolutely. I'll send you the whole thing, and then next week sometime I'll do clips.
That sounds good to me. Hey, I'm learning this stuff. That's why I need a second book for this stuff.
That's great, man. Hey, have a good night, and I'll be watching. And thanks again, buddy.
Hey, Rob, thanks for having me. I loved it. Well, I'm looking forward to doing more podcasts with you. You're an ideal broadcast partner for me. You told me that we could be dangerous together.
Hey, man, we're going to be dangerous, especially during the football season.
Absolutely.
Keep that in mind. We haven't even talked college yet.
Well, don't worry. I got plenty of sources to get you when you start seeing those comments come out. You haven't seen nothing yet, buddy. Thanks a lot.
Have a good one. Thank you, everybody. I will be back on. I will be back on here. This is being recorded on Tuesday, so I'll be back here at the top of the hour. This program will be obviously recorded or shot live. Thank you for watching. You see Scott's book at these cross of the screen here, and I hope you like this. Again, thanks for watching the Real Sports Scope.